Ryan stood nervously outside the grand hall, adjusting the collar of his uniform. He had been to many galas in his career as a soldier, but this one felt different. The event was for high-ranking officials, diplomats, and representatives of the various alien species the humans had been interacting with. Ryan, a relatively low-ranking officer, had only been invited because of his role in helping facilitate peaceful relations. But even so, he couldn't help but feel out of place as he entered the hall. The music was soft, and the hum of quiet conversations filled the air. Glanced around, taking in the beauty of the room. Extravagant decorations filled the space, and strange alien creatures mingled with humans. But it wasn't the decorations that caught Ryan's attention, it was her princess, Arya. She stood near a pillar at the far side of the room, surrounded by a group of dignitaries. Ryan noticed her immediately. She was stunning tall, with long, silvery hair that seemed to shimmer in the dim light. Her skin was a soft shade of lavender and her eyes bright and intelligent. Scanned the room as if she was constantly calculating. She was beautiful, but it wasn't just her appearance. There was something about her, something regal and untouchable, that drew Ryan in. He tried to ignore the flutter in his chest. He was just a soldier. She was royalty. There was no way they'd ever have any real interaction, but as the evening went on, he found his eyes drifting back to her over and over again. She didn't seem to be speaking much with anyone, just quietly observing. Her presence was enough to command attention, and yet she didn't seem to want it. Ryan told himself to stop staring. He wasn't here to meet anyone, especially not a princess. But as if fate had other plans, he found himself standing near her later in the evening, a glass of alien wine in hand. He had been caught in a brief conversation with another officer. When he turned and found himself facing Arya, he froze for a moment. She was even more breathtaking up close. "Oh, she," said with a small, polite smile. "I didn't expect to see a human soldier here." Ryan cleared his throat, trying to compose himself. "I'm just here for the event. I'm not a diplomat or anything. Just doing my part." Her eyes sparkled with amusement. "And what part would that be?" "Helping with relations," he said awkwardly. "Keeping things peaceful. It's what we're all here for, right?" She tilted her head, studying him for a moment. "And you think that's enough? To just help people get along?" Ryan hesitated. It wasn't a question he had really thought about. "I suppose," he said. "It's better than the alternative." Her smile softened, and for a brief moment, Ryan forgot to breathe. He'd never seen a smile like that before. It wasn't just polite or formal, it was warm, genuine. He found himself drawn into her gaze. "I suppose that's true," Arya said, taking a small sip of her drink. "It's strange, isn't it? All of us from different worlds trying to find common ground." Her voice was calm, almost as if she were speaking to herself. "Do you ever wonder if we're actually succeeding?" Ryan had no answer for that. He hadn't really thought much about it. He'd always been focused on the present, on the mission at hand. But standing there in front of her, he realized how little he understood about the larger picture. About the different species, the complex politics, the galaxy itself. Before he could respond, Arya glanced around the room, her attention momentarily diverted. Ryan noticed how effortlessly she held herself, as if she didn't belong in the chaos of a party like this. There was something sad behind her eyes, something that made Ryan wonder if she wanted to be anywhere but here, as the silence stretched between them. Ryan felt an awkward tension building. He shifted on his feet, unsure of what to say next. Had spent so many years focused on his duties that he had forgotten how to have a simple conversation with someone outside his immediate circle, especially someone as important as her. But then, to his surprise, Arya broke the silence. "Why don't you date me, human?" she asked softly, her voice low and almost teasing. Ryan blinked, certain he hadn't heard her right. His heart skipped a beat. He was sure he must have misheard her. She couldn't be serious. She was a princess, for crying out loud. He was just some soldier in a room full of diplomats and nobles. What could she possibly mean by that? Ryan stammered, trying to make sense of the situation. "What?" Arya raised an eyebrow, her expression unchanging. "You heard me? Why don't you date me?" Ryan's mind raced, but before he could find a way to respond, She gave him a small smile and turned away, as though nothing had happened. As though she hadn't just dropped a bombshell in his lap. He watched her leave, his heart still pounding. In his chest, did she mean it? Or was it just a joke? The words echoed in his mind, and no matter how much he tried to dismiss it, the question lingered in the air between them. Why don't you date me, human? The following days felt different for Ryan. It wasn't that anything had changed outwardly. It's the same meetings, the same training, the same endless duties. But there was something lingering in his thoughts, something he couldn't shake. Here he is. Words echoed in his mind constantly as though they had imprinted themselves there. Why don't you date me, human? The phrase repeated over and over, and each time it felt even more surreal. Ryan tried to brush it off as a passing comment. Something a princess might say out of playful curiosity. After all, she was royalty. He was a soldier. There was no way anything could come of it. But every time he saw her, he couldn't help but notice the quiet way she watched him, like she was waiting for something. It wasn't until another formal gathering that Ryan found himself face to face with her once again. The atmosphere was charged with tension, the discussions about the galaxy's future growing more serious. Yet, as Ryan took his seat at the long table, his attention drifted toward the far end of the room. And there she was, Arya, standing with a group of delegates. Her soft, lavender skin seemed to glow under the dim lights, and her silvery hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. But it wasn't just her beauty that caught Ryan's attention. It was the way she moved, with purpose and grace. She wasn't just a princess, she was a leader. Yet, despite the commanding presence she held, there was something vulnerable in her eyes, something that made Ryan feel like she wasn't as untouchable. As she seemed, he found himself staring, unable to look away. At that moment, their eyes met across the room. Arya's lips curled into a small, knowing smile, and Ryan's heart skipped a beat. The world around him seemed to fade away as the silence between them stretched longer than it should have. Her gaze locked onto his, and then, to his surprise, she started walking toward him. She weaved through the crowd with effortless grace. And as she got closer, Ryan's heart rate picked up. He tried to act casual, but it was difficult to hide the nervousness that crept up on him. Hello? Human. Arya greeted him when she stood before him, her voice soft and smooth, just like the last time. I had a way of making the simplest. Words sound important. Her eyes, filled with an unspoken curiosity, met his. Hi, Princess, Ryan replied, his voice shaky. He couldn't help it. There was something about her that made him forget how to speak normally. She tilted her head slightly, studying him.
You're nervous,
she noted, her smile widening. Ryan felt his face flush, but he wasn't sure if it was from the compliment or from the awkwardness of the situation. I guess I am. It's not every day a princess talks to me. Her eyes twinkled, and she chuckled softly. And why should that make you nervous? Ryan wasn't sure how to answer that. Had never been in a situation like this before. He had always been surrounded by soldiers, by people who understood the same struggles he did. But Arya, she was different. She was a princess. Someone who didn't need to explain herself. I don't know, he said finally. It's just... I didn't expect you to talk to me like this. I mean, you're royalty. You're not like everyone else. Arya leaned in a little, lowering her voice. And why do you think that is? Ryan looked at her, unsure how to respond. He was beginning to wonder if she was playing some kind of game. But there was a sincerity in her eyes that made him second-guess himself. I don't know, he said again, shaking his head. It's just... you're different. You're not like the others. Arya's smile softened. She stepped closer, lowering her voice further, so only he could hear. Maybe that's because I'm not like everyone else. Ryan's breath caught in his throat. There was something in the way she said it, something that made him feel like there was more to her than what met the eye. Before he could say anything more, Arya placed a gentle hand on his arm. The touch was soft, but it sent a wave of warmth through him. I'm glad we could talk, she said, her gaze lingering on him. But I do have to go. The others are waiting for me. Ryan nodded quickly, trying to regain his composure. Of course, Princess. It was nice talking to you. She paused before turning away, giving him a final look over her shoulder. "Why don't you think about what I said, human?" she asked, her words almost a whisper. Ryan blinked, feeling his heart race as she walked away. He stood there for a moment, rooted to the spot, trying to process what had just happened. The words, "Why don't you date me?" seemed even more real now. But how could that be? A princess. It's interested in a soldier like him. It didn't make sense. Later that evening, as Ryan lay in his quarters, he couldn't stop thinking about their conversation. Her words kept echoing in his head. The thought of her had consumed him, and he had no idea what to do with it. Was this some kind of test? Good joke? Or was it possible that Arya, the princess of a mighty empire, was genuinely interested in him? Ran a hand through his hair, exhaling in frustration. This was madness. He was just a soldier. What could he offer her that was worth anything? He could hardly believe she had even noticed him. But something deep inside him told him to stop doubting himself. Maybe, just maybe, this was real. The next day, the tension between them grew. Every time Ryan saw Arya, she would smile at him in passing, her gaze always lingering just a little too long. He couldn't help but feel his heart race each time she was near. She had made her intentions clear, but the question remained. What was he supposed to do with that? One thing was for certain. His life was about to change in ways he couldn't even begin to imagine. The next few days felt like they were dragging on for Ryan. He could hardly focus on his work, as thoughts of Arya kept interrupting his concentration. Every time he saw her, his heart would race, and his mind would go blank. He had never been one to believe in love at first sight, but something about her made it impossible to ignore. There was a connection between them that couldn't be explained, and the more time he spent around her, the more it became impossible to deny. Arya. Two seemed to be paying more attention to him. They crossed paths during meetings, at events, and even in the halls of the palace. Each time, her eyes would meet his, and there was always that quiet smile, as if she was waiting for him to make the first move. But Ryan didn't know how to approach her. He was a soldier, not a prince or a nobleman. What could he possibly offer her? She was a princess, a woman who could have any man she wanted. And yet she kept talking to him, kept finding reasons to be near him. It didn't make sense. One evening, as the sun began to set, Ryan was walking through the palace gardens, his mind heavy with thoughts of the princess. The cool air calmed him, but his heart still raced. He didn't even realize how lost in his thoughts he was, until he looked up and saw her standing by the fountain. Arya was alone, her lavender skin glowing in the fading light. Her hair, usually so perfectly arranged, was now a little messy. As though she had been running her hands through it, she was staring at the water, deep in thought, and for a moment, Ryan hesitated. Should he approach her? What would he say? But before he could turn and walk away, she noticed him. Her eyes locked onto his, and she smiled, a small, knowing smile that made his heart flutter. "Ryan," she said softly, her voice as calming as always. "You're the last person I expected to see out here." Ryan swallowed, trying to keep his composure. "I didn't mean to disturb you, princess. Please," she replied, shaking her head. "Just Arya, we've spoken enough times now. For you to drop the formalities?" Her words caught him off guard. She had always been polite, always respectful, but the fact that she was asking him to call her by her name felt personal. It made his heart skip a beat. I didn't want to make you uncomfortable," Ryan said, unsure of what to say next. He took a step closer, though still keeping a respectful distance. "You seem so different from everyone else." "Here, I didn't think you'd want to talk to someone like me." Arya's expression softened, and she took a step toward him. "Why wouldn't I want to talk to you?" Ryan shook his head. "You're a princess. You have a kingdom to rule. People to lead. I'm just a soldier. What could we possibly have in common?" Arya's eyes sparkled with amusement. "I'm not just a princess, Ryan. I'm a person. And people are ... complicated. We all have dreams, fears, desires."
Just because I was born into royalty doesn't mean I'm immune to those things.
Didn't know how to respond. He had always seen her as someone above him, someone with a life he could never understand. But as she spoke, he realized that maybe he had been wrong about her all along. You're not like I thought, he admitted quietly. I thought royalty only cared about their title, their power. Arya smiled softly. I used to think that, too. But it's hard to care about power when you're always looking over your shoulder, wondering if the people around you truly care about you, or if they just want something from you. Ryan's heart ached as he listened to her. He had never thought about it that way. Arya was trapped in her position, surrounded by expectations and responsibilities that he could never imagine. She wasn't free to make her own choices, to live her life the way she wanted. I'm sorry, Ryan said, his voice low. I didn't realize how much you had to deal with. Arya shrugged, though the sadness in her eyes didn't go unnoticed. It's not your fault. People often forget that just because someone is in a position of power doesn't mean they have control over their own life. For a moment, there was a silence between them. Ryan found himself lost in her gaze, his mind racing with the weight of her words. He wanted to say something, anything that would make her feel better. But the right words eluded him. Then, Arya broke the silence with a soft chuckle. You know, I've been wanting to ask you something. Ryan looked at her, surprised by the sudden change in tone. What's that? Why haven't you taken me up on my offer yet? She asked, her eyes glinting with mischief. You know, the whole date me human thing? Ryan's breath caught in his throat. He had thought about it a lot since she first said it, but he never expected her to bring it up again. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Don't know what to say, he finally muttered. I'm not sure what you mean by that. I'm just a soldier. What could I offer you? Arya's expression softened, and she took another step closer to him. You offer me something I don't have, she said quietly. Genuine company. A person who isn't here because of my title, but because they want to get to know me. You don't have to be anything else. Just be yourself. Ryan was stunned. He had never expected her to say something like that. But as he looked into her eyes, he saw the sincerity there. She wasn't just saying these things to be polite. She meant it. Why don't you date me, Ryan? Arya asked, her voice barely a whisper. For the first time in days, Ryan felt his nerves settle. Maybe it was the way she spoke to him, or maybe it was just the connection he felt with her. But he finally allowed himself to believe that this wasn't some passing whim. I'd like that, he said, his voice firm but soft. I'd like that very much. Arya smiled, and Ryan could feel the weight of the moment settle between them. The ice had finally broken, and something real, something lasting was starting to form. In the days that followed, things between Ryan and Arya seemed to change. Their conversations became more frequent, their interactions more personal. Yet despite the closeness they were beginning to share, Ryan could sense a distance growing. Between them, it wasn't something she had said or done, it was something unspoken. There was a weight in her eyes, a heaviness in the way she carried herself, that hadn't been there before. It was clear to Ryan that Arya was struggling with something, but she refused to talk about it. She remained kind and open, but there was a guardedness to her that hadn't existed before. It was as if she were pushing him away. Even though she had invited him closer, Ryan tried not to let it affect him, but it was hard. He wasn't used to being this vulnerable, especially not with someone so important. Arya was the princess of an entire empire. He had a world to rule, and he was just a soldier, a man from a different world entirely. His presence in her life was, at best, an anomaly, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he mattered to her, even if she wasn't ready to admit it. One evening, after a particularly tense diplomatic meeting, Ryan found himself walking through the palace gardens again, trying to clear his head. The cool night air did little to calm the swirling thoughts. In his mind, he had barely gotten any sleep the past few nights, his mind constantly replaying his interactions with Arya. There were so many moments where he had almost asked her what was wrong, but he never did. It felt like if he said the wrong thing, he might lose the connection they were starting to build. As he passed by the fountain, he saw her again. This time, Arya was standing alone, looking out over the water. Her back was straight, her posture perfect, but there was an undeniable sadness in her eyes. She wasn't smiling, and she didn't seem to be as calm as she usually was. Ryan hesitated for a moment before walking toward her. "Princess," he called softly. Arya turned to face him, and for a moment their eyes met. There was a flicker of recognition in her gaze, but also something else, something distant. "I didn't mean to disturb you," Ryan said, his voice careful. "I just... I wanted to make sure you were okay." Arya's lips curved into a faint smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, Ryan. Just thinking about the future." Ryan stepped closer, his concern growing. "The future?" he asked. "What about the future?" She sighed deeply, her gaze drifting back to the water. "I have a lot of responsibilities. Things I need to think about. My people, my family, my kingdom. There's so many things that need my attention. And sometimes I feel like I'm not enough. Like no matter what I do, I can't make everyone happy." Ryan's heart ached at the sadness in her voice. "I didn't realize it was that difficult for you." Arya shook her head. "Don't. They think that because I'm royalty, I have everything I could possibly want. But it's not true. I'm expected to always be strong, always have the answers. But sometimes I don't know what to do. Sometimes I just want to run away, be free. But I can't. I have responsibilities that no one else can bear." Ryan took a step forward, closer than before, but he didn't know how to make her feel better. He wasn't a prince. He wasn't an advisor. He was just a soldier, a man who knew how to fight, but had no idea how to fix a broken heart. "Don't have to do this alone," he said quietly. "I'm here for you. You don't have to carry everything by yourself." Arya's eyes softened, and for a brief moment she looked like she might say something. But then she looked away, her expression hardening again. "You don't understand, Ryan. You can't understand." Ryan took a deep breath. "I want to understand. You don't have to push me away." "I'm not pushing you away," she replied, though her voice lacked conviction. "I just... I have to focus. There are things I can't ignore, no matter how much I wish I could." The words stung, and Ryan felt a lump form in his throat. It was as if she had just shut a door between them. No matter how much they had shared, no matter how many moments had passed between them, she was still a princess. And he was still just a soldier. "I get it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I just thought that maybe we could make this work. I don't want to be just another thing you have to deal with. But I care about you, Arya. I care about you more than I ever expected to." Arya looked at him again, her expression torn. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she stepped back, crossing her arms over her chest, as if to protect herself. "I care about you too, Ryan, but that's not enough. I can't just live in the moment. I have to think about the future, about the people who rely on me." Ryan's chest tightened, but he didn't argue. He knew she was right. She had a future to consider, one that didn't include a soldier like him. "I understand," he said, forcing a smile. "I just want you to know that I'm here, no matter what happens." Arya gave him a sad smile in return, her eyes filled with regret. "I know, and I appreciate that, Ryan. I really do." For a moment, they stood in silence, the cool night, air wrapping around them. Ryan could feel the distance between them growing wider. And no matter how much he wished he could close the gap, he knew it wasn't something he could fix. Arya had a burden that no one else could carry. And Ryan, for all his good intentions, wasn't the one who could lighten it. "I should go," Arya said finally, turning to leave. Ryan watched her walk away, the weight of the conversation pressing down on him. He'd come here to offer her comfort, but all he had done was make things more complicated. And as much as he wanted to fix everything, he couldn't help but feel like he was losing her little by little. Days passed since that quiet conversation in the gardens, and Ryan couldn't stop thinking about Arya. The sadness in her eyes lingered in his thoughts, and the distance between them felt unbearable. It was like they were two people trying to connect but always being pulled apart by forces beyond their control. Arya had made it clear that she had responsibilities, and as much as Ryan wanted to support her, he couldn't help but feel like he was losing her little by little. She had been distant lately, almost like a shadow of the woman he had gotten to know. Her smile was more forced, her conversations shorter. And her eyes, those bright eyes that had once held warmth now, seemed cold and distant. Ryan didn't know what to do. He couldn't push her. She had her empire to think about, her people, to rule. What could a simple soldier like him do to ease the weight of her world? One evening, after another long day of meetings and discussions, Ryan found himself wandering the palace halls. His mind was clouded with confusion and his heart felt heavy. He wasn't sure if he was fooling himself, but he had come to realize that he couldn't let things go on like this. He had to do something. He had to make her see that they could face whatever was holding her back, dash together. As he turned a corner, he saw her. Arya was standing by a large window, gazing out at the stars. The soft light from the moon illuminated her features, casting a peaceful glow on her face. For a moment, Ryan just watched her, wondering if she even realized how much she meant to him. Taking a deep breath, he walked toward her. Arya didn't hear him approach until he was standing beside her. "Princess," Ryan said softly, his voice gentle but firm. Arya turned, surprised to see him, but quickly masked any emotion behind a neutral expression. "Ryan," she greeted. Him, her tone polite but distant. "I didn't expect to see you here. I couldn't stay away," Ryan replied. "I need to talk to you. We need to talk." Arya looked at him for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable crossing her face. "Is this about what we discussed the other day?" she asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Ryan shook his head. "No, it's not just about that. It's about everything. It's about what's been happening between us." Arya frowned, her eyes lowering as she looked out the window again. "I don't know what you mean." "I've been clear with you, Ryan. I have a duty to my people, to my family. You don't understand the weight of what I carry. You can't. No one can." "I understand more than you think," Ryan said quietly, stepping a little closer to her. "I may not be royalty, and I may not have the same responsibilities as you, but I care about you, Arya, more than you know. And I can't stand by and watch you carry everything alone. I know you don't want to let anyone in, but you don't have to be alone in this." Arya's eyes flashed with something a mixture of frustration and sadness. She opened her mouth to say something, but Ryan held up a hand, silencing her. "I'm not asking for you to drop everything and run away with me," Ryan continued. "I'm asking for the chance to be there for you, to be someone you can rely on. You don't have to carry everything by yourself. I'm here, and I want to help you." Arya's expression softened, and for a moment she seemed to consider his words. But then her shoulders slumped, and the weight of her thoughts seemed to crash over her. "You don't understand, Ryan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I can't just be with you. I can't let myself be selfish. My people need me. My empire needs me. And if I fail them, if I fail the people who are depending on me, then I'm not fit to lead. I can't be what I want to be. I can't be with you." Ryan took a deep breath, trying to understand where she was coming from. He knew that being with her wasn't going to be easy. There were too many forces at play. But he also knew that if they didn't try, they would never know what could be. "You're not selfish, Arya," Ryan said, his voice steady. "And you don't have to choose between your people and your happiness. I know it's not easy, and I know you have a lot to carry, but you deserve to be happy too. You deserve to have someone who cares for you. It's there for you no matter what." Arya shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. Now she quickly wiped them away, but Ryan saw the vulnerability there. He had never seen her like this before, and it made his heart ache. She wasn't the strong, untouchable princess anymore. She was just a woman, tired and afraid of making the wrong choice. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I don't know how to balance everything. I don't know how to be with you and still be who I need to be for my people. I can't let myself be weak." Ryan stepped closer, gently placing a hand on her arm. "You're not weak, Arya. You're strong in ways that no one else could ever be. But you don't have to do this alone. I'm not asking you to give up your responsibilities. I'm just asking for a chance to be with you, to help you carry this burden. You don't have to do everything by yourself." For a long moment, Arya stood there, her eyes searching his, as if trying to decide if she could trust him. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but clear. "I don't know what the future holds, Ryan. I don't know if this can work, but I want to try. I want to try with you." Ryan smiled, relief flooding through him. He had never been more certain of anything in his life. They both knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, obstacles, and difficult decisions to face. But for the first time in a long time, Arya had allowed herself to take a chance, and that was enough. "I'm with you, Arya," he said. "No matter what happens. Be here." And for the first time in days, Arya allowed herself to smile, her eyes soft with the promise of something new, something real. The weight of her world was still there, but for now, she wasn't carrying it alone. The days following their conversation felt like a breath of fresh air for Ryan. The weight that had settled on his chest for weeks seemed to lift, if only a little. Arya had finally allowed herself to consider a future that included him. And, although the road ahead wouldn't be easy, it was a road they were both willing to walk together. The shift was subtle at first. Arya was still the princess, still bound by her duties and responsibilities. But there was something different in the way she looked at Ryan now. A quiet understanding passed between them. She no longer looked at him as just a soldier, a duty-bound companion to help her with her diplomatic mission. There was more. Now, he was someone she cared about, someone she trusted. Ryan didn't expect everything to change overnight. He knew that the challenges of their relationship were far from over. Arya still had her empire to rule, her people to lead, and the weight of it all was often visible in the way she held herself. But for the first time, she had allowed herself to be vulnerable. She had allowed herself to lean on someone else. And that was a huge step for her. Ryan watched her closely over the next few days, noticing the small things. The way she smiled when she saw him, the way she leaned into his presence, just a little more than before. He could see that she was still torn between her responsibilities and her desire to be with him. But there was no denying the connection between them, no matter how complicated things got. One afternoon, as the sun began to set over the palace, Ryan found Arya sitting on the balcony of her quarters, staring out at the view. Loved the view from her balcony, the sprawling gardens, the shining towers of the city below, the endless sky above. It was a beautiful sight, one that had always given her a sense of peace. But today, she seemed distracted, her thoughts far away. Ryan approached quietly, not wanting to disturb her, but Arya turned her head as soon as she heard his footsteps. Her face softened when she saw him, and she gestured for him to sit beside her. "Hey," he said, taking a seat next to her. "What's on your mind?" Arya smiled faintly, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Just thinking," she replied, her voice quiet. Ryan didn't push her. He knew she needed time to process everything, just as he did. But he couldn't help but wonder what she was thinking about. What was keeping her up at night? What burden was she carrying that she hadn't shared with him yet? "It's a beautiful view," he said, trying to ease the tension that hung between them. "You've got the best seat in the house." Arya laughed softly, her eyes drifting back to the horizon. "I've spent so much time looking at this view that I've forgotten how much it means to me. I've always been so focused on what's ahead that I forgot to appreciate what's here." Ryan studied her, sensing the sadness. In her tone, "I know it's not easy, Arya. You have a lot to carry. You don't have to do it alone." "I know," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to do it alone. But sometimes I feel like it's too much for anyone else to handle. My people. They look to me for guidance. They expect me to be perfect. And I can't always be perfect." Ryan reached out, gently taking her hand in his. "You don't have to be perfect. No one expects that from you. You're doing the best you can, and that's all anyone can ask for." Arya looked at him, her eyes searching his, as though trying to decide if she could trust his words. "But what if I make the wrong decision?" she asked, her voice trembling. Slightly. "What if I fail them? What if I fail you?" Ryan shook his head, squeezing her hand. "You won't fail me. You won't fail your people. You're strong, Arya, stronger than you realize. And no matter what happens, I'll be right here. I'll be with you." For a long moment, they sat there in silence, the weight of her words hanging in the air. The world around them was quiet, the distant sounds of the city fading into the background. It felt like just the two of them in that moment, the rest of the galaxy forgotten. Finally, Arya spoke, her voice soft but steady. "I want to try, Ryan. I want to try with you." I don't know what the future holds, but I'm willing to take that step. With you. Ryan's heart swelled with emotion, and for the first time he felt like they could face anything together. The challenges that lay ahead would not be easy. But he had never been more certain of anything in his life. I'm with you, Arya, he said, his voice firm. No matter what happens, I'm with you. Arya smiled then, a real smile one, that lit up her face and made her seem more alive than he had seen her in weeks. It was a smile that told him everything he needed to know. She had made her decision. She was ready to face the future, whatever it might bring. They sat there for a while longer, just holding hands, watching the stars begin to appear in the sky. It was a peaceful moment, one that Ryan would treasure for the rest of his life. That moment he realized that the future didn't have to be uncertain. It didn't have to be filled with fear or doubt. As long as they were together, they could face anything. And for the first time, in a long time, Arya felt the same way. She didn't have to carry the weight of the galaxy alone. She had someone by her side, someone who believed in her, someone who cared for her. The future was still ahead of them, but now they were ready to face it together.